We know what the schedule is. We know, for the most part, what the roster is. Now, what are the New York Jets going to be in 2025? I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. So I can hear it already. I know it's coming. Oh, you're not a real fan. Go root for somebody else if you don't think the Jets are going to be awesome this year. Fake fan. God forbid you tell the truth. God forbid. But I will say this. Tonight we're going to take a look at 5 reasons why the Jets are probably going to be worse this year than they were last year. But tomorrow we're going to look at 5 reasons why they might be better, that they could be better. Look, I think the being worse is the more likely realistic scenario, of course. However, I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, none of us know what's going to happen. They could go winless, they could go undefeated. They'll probably fall somewhere in between. But we don't know what's going to happen. We're all out here just giving our best guesses. So I'm going to give my best guess as to, well, I did that last night with the schedule, right? I think they'll win, you know, between 4 and 6 games. But maybe they win 10. But that'll be tomorrow's show. We'll talk about what has to happen for this Jets team to be a playoff contender next year or this year. And there is a roadmap to that happening. I just think it's a lot less likely than the roadmap to being worse this year than they were last year. So spare me all of the drama and all of the I'm a better fan than you are because I never think they're going to lose a game. Good for you. Keep living in that world. Alternate realities must be phenomenal places to live. I don't live there. I live in the real world. And in the real world, the Jets have some problems. The Jets have or let's say some huge question marks, right? Because the games haven't started. They're not problems yet. But if these things play out the way, the way that I believe anyway, it's most likely, then there will be some issues. 5 reasons. 5 reasons why I would say the Jets are going to be worse this year than next year. I've talked about a lot of these things before. We'll just go a little bit more in depth tonight. DJ Reed's gone. And there's nobody on the roster who I believe can play at his level. Next to Sauce. Sauce will be Sauce. I think that no matter who steps in and plays corner, I think it's going to be a downgrade. That doesn't mean I don't think Azariah Thomas can be a good player. I think he will in time. But as a rookie, is he going to be on DJ Reed's level? I don't think so. And look, I get Reed had some significant ups and downs last year. But even the thing with Reed, similar with almost the same thing with Sauce. You look at their production, and they weren't nearly as bad as people say they were. They just slipped from their sort of usual standard because they were, arguably the best 1-2 combo in the league a couple of years ago. Jets defense gave up 14, 15 points a game 2 years ago. Then last year, as I've talked about, these guys are human. All the hype, the months and months of building up, and then everything, they fall flat on their face right out of the gate. Robert Saleh gets fired, and everyone just like palms up. What the hell? What's going on here? Shrug, palms up. Effort starts to slip. You see the tackling gets sloppy. You see the coverage gets sloppy. Watch DJ Reed in Detroit this year. And look at DJ Reed every other year with the Jets. Last year, basically, to me, was an aberration for DJ Reed. And he still wasn't that bad. He just wasn't DJ Reed good all year. He was strong early. And then after the Saleh firing, slipped for a little while. But he can still play. And I think you got a significant downgrade there at CB2. And the other downgrade, and I'm pairing these my 5 reasons, but I'm pairing these. I think, and I've talked about this, as much as I like the Mason Taylor pick, I think it's going to be a little while till he has an impact. Now, listen, the one caveat there is that Mason Taylor might have a huge impact because the Jets don't have a lot of targets, a lot of guys to throw the football to. in terms of proven guys. And Taylor's obviously not proven, but he's very talented. So we might see him get a ton of targets because of that. And if he produces, then fine. I guess we'd say it's not a downgrade. Collectively for the offense, if he ends up being your second target, is Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor a better 1-2 than Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams? Because that's last year's 1-2. So different positions, but still your top two targets if it does transpire that way with Taylor. So I think the downgrade, but again, the point being, it is a downgrade to me. And I've talked about this before. I don't want people saying, "Oh my God, you're saying Tyler Conklin's going to be, that Taylor's not as good as Conklin." I don't think rookie Taylor will be as good as veteran Conklin. I think by late in his rookie year, definitely by year 2 or 3, he can be a guy that will be a better player than Tyler Conklin. I just don't see a rookie coming in at that position. It's just so rare that you see rookies at tight end play at a very high level early on. And I don't think we're going to see that from him. And again, that's not to say Conklin played at a very high level. Conklin was a good player who didn't see a lot of targets because the Jets are a dysfunctional mess and they just don't know how to run an offense. Conklin with a better team, with a better situation would have been a far more productive player. But as it stands, that's my first reason, is that you've got a significant downgrade at CB2 and it's significant, or a downgrade, we'll say, at tight end with a possibility that things could transpire in such a way where Taylor is more productive than Conklin, but your wide receiver 2 will then be nowhere near as productive as you had with Devontae and Garrett Wilson. Now, who you want to say the 1 was and who the 2 was, kind of depends on the week. There were times it felt like Garrett was the 1. Then there were other weeks where it was like, is Garrett still on the team? That buddy ball, definitely. I'm sure that didn't go well, and that kind of ties in, right? Because that is another one of my reasons, not to focus solely on tight end, not to focus solely on receiver, but with Devontae Adams gone and Tyler Conklin gone, and the list of receivers who have been brought in since the start of the offseason, this is one area where I feel a little bit for Justin Fields. And I'm not, for people, I'll tell you right now, Justin Fields, quarterback, is not on the list of reasons. Because as I've said before, I think that for what the Jets want to do at quarterback, I think they're going to want to run the hell out of the ball, lots of RPOs, use your legs. Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have been able to do that. So I think in terms of efficiency and moving the offense, I don't know that Justin Fields will be much worse than what Aaron Rodgers was last year. So it'll be through different methods. He won't have the number of pass attempts Rodgers had, but I think the Jets will be able to move the ball a little bit because of using his legs and the good offensive line and all that. So just get that out of the way in terms of, I don't want anybody saying, well, why wasn't Fields one of your 5 reasons? Don't get me wrong, there's questions there. But the lack of targets overall, just looking at the offense, and we've talked about this. You've got Garrett Wilson, and that's it. There's not another guy on this roster who's come close to 1,000-yard season. There's not another guy in this roster who's been a wide receiver 1 or 2 at any point. There's not a tight end on this roster who's proven anything. Again, I get that Taylor can be a good one. Stone Smart might be a good one. He's going to have an increased role, increased targets this year. If, again, the Ruckert thing kind of gets thrown into question in terms of what his role will be with the addition of Fields. It's like, will they kind of because of the chemistry they have from having played together at Ohio State, will we see a situation where Fields is getting Ruckert more targets than he's had in the past? I'm not so sure about that. But the lack of targets is going to be an issue for Justin Fields. Again, you can sort of offset that a little bit, and this is something we'll talk about tomorrow night when we do how the Jets can be better next year. A lot of that's going to be if it's just so run heavy that, pick your spots when you throw the ball, but be a ground and pound team. So there is a roadmap to them being effective on offense. I don't think you'll see Justin Fields having the number of targets through the air that he would like to have to throw to in order to sort of take that next step in his career. I think Garrett Wilson's going to be absolutely peppered with targets, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because he's a great player. But Chris Olave is an interesting thing, isn't it? Interesting situation. We don't know what's going to happen with him in New Orleans, but we do know New Orleans is perennially up against the cap. Didn't I have a really hard time saying that a couple months ago? I feel like I tried saying perennially on an episode and I kept getting tongue tied. I think that was the thing. Um, but the Saints are every year there's a story about the Saints being up against the cap. Then they have to cut Carr because of the retirement, because of the shoulder, and that's another huge cap hit for a guy who won't even be on the roster. And now they're gonna have to go with a rookie at quarterback. Like, did they hit the reset button? Or do they say we want to keep Olave around so our young quarterback, whoever it may be, whether it's Shuck or Rattler or Hayner, we want them to have a legit number one to throw to. So no, we're not going to send him to the Jets in exchange for Allen Lazard and a pick or whatever. Um, it would be interesting though if Darren Muji says, you know what, let's go get Justin another one of his college guys. He's got his wide receiver one, he's got his tight end, he's got his center. How much he plays, we'll see. Let's go get him another one of his receivers. That'd be great, but until something like that happens, we're just talking about what the team looks like right now. So I think that's issue number 2, or I guess let's say we're counting down issue 5, cornerback depth, tight end depth, for all around targets, not just tight ends, receivers, slot. There's just not a lot there. Again, Anais Smith is a guy who obviously tons of potential, all the potential in the world, all the speed in the world, might turn out to be a hell of a pick. That's one of those picks where I don't hate that Muji took him. I just thought he took him earlier than he needed to. And that's just a guess. I don't know. The team next on the board, Smith might have been their guy. Maybe the Jets just got him. I just doubt that. I think when you talk about guys who have the issues he has, those are the guys who go late day 3, not early day 3. But could he be wide receiver 2? Could he develop quickly because of that speed? Absolutely. So maybe that happens, and the lack of targets thing isn't all that bad. But what I do think will be an issue will be a change up from recent years. Not so much this past year, but lack of a pass rush. I don't think there's any denying. It's staggering when you look at where this team was just a couple of years ago in terms of their depth at pass rush. When you had Jermaine Johnson, you had a healthy Jermaine Johnson, you had a rookie Will McDonald, you had Bryce Huff, you had John Franklin Myers, of course, Quinnen Williams in the middle, but those edge guys could get to the quarterback. That stings, losing all those guys. And now you traded JFM, which I said at the time was probably my least favorite move of the Joe Douglas era. I hated that move. I hated the JFM trade. And it still stings, or it still hurts this defense. As much people have slept on JFM for years, because again, people are so in love with sacks that they feel like if you don't get 12 to 15 sacks, you suck, and that's it. There's more to defensive line play than that. There's more to edge play than that. JFM did a great job of setting that edge against the run. He could also be impactful as a pass rusher. Just such a good player. And that's why he got the money he got from the Jets. And I assume when he's a free agent after this season, he'll get another decent contract. I don't know if it'll still be Denver because they have so much firepower up front. But I think that was a move the Jets regret. And I think overall, if you look at the number of pass rushers they've lost, and I've talked about it. You're now going into this year, and I like Tyler Barron. I think he could be that JFM replacement, that guy who's strong against the run and strong against the pass. But until he's proven something, in terms of guys who have shown they can get it done, you've got Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. And that's it. And Jermaine Johnson is coming back off that injury. We've talked about that. You don't know at what point in the season, you don't know at what point in the year he's going to be himself. Pass rush. It's not what it was a couple years ago. Moving inside against the run. This is my biggest concern, personnel-wise, like on-field concerns, is the ability to stop the run. And you look at the way the Jets performed last year against the run, and I've seen people say, "Look at the numbers. They're not big. They're middle of the pack." I forget where they ranked overall, but it wasn't terrible. However, this is where statistics can be deceiving. Um, you don't want to just be an average team against the run or a little bit above average. You need to be able to stop the run in big spots and be dominant against the run. The Jets last year, they had 3 or 4 games where their run defense was really good, really good. Held their opponent to 2, 3 yards a carry. I don't know. I might let me see if I pull them up. I might have them up here. 1 second. I do. Okay, I couldn't remember if I closed the screen down or not. So last year against Minnesota, where they gave up a bunch of points, well, 23, and there was a pick six, so the defense did settle down late in that game. But in that game, Minnesota 2.7 a carry. We'll throw the New England game in there, 3.6. That's a nice day. Against Indy, 2.6 a carry, completely shut them down. Miami, 2.3 a carry, shut them down. Then Buffalo, week 17, 2.9 a carry. That's a handful of really good games. And that put them at 4.1 a carry for the year on against the run, which is right around average. League average is about 4.2 a carry. However, that's 4 games. Unfortunately for the Jets, there were 13 other games to be played. In those 13 games, they gave up 4.5 yards a carry or more 8 times. They gave up 4 yards a carry 11 times. 4 is kind of at least in my mind, kind of the standard. Like, you want to keep a team at or under 4 a carry, right? Because that's with 4.2 being the average, you don't want to just be average against the run. So if you can hold a team under 4 yards a carry, you got a real good shot. Once teams get 4 and up, that's a lot of third and shorts. That's a lot of, ideal passing play action situation, putting your defense in bad spots. You want those stops. You want those 2 and 3 yard gains to where teams are having to make a play on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, not 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. And the Jets faced a lot of that last year because of the fact that they were getting beat up in the trenches. So again, 8 different times they gave up more than 4.5 a carry. 11 times they gave up 4 per carry. So those 3 or 4 games make it look like, oh, they were solid against the run all year. No, they were really good against the run 3 or 4 times. The rest of the time, they were anywhere from average to well below average. And now you go into this season having not really added a run stopper. Look, I know I'm a broken record, but I've said several times during the season, let's get this to where you add multiple run stoppers, multiple DTs. And they didn't. So you're a team that gave up 4 yards a carry or more 11 times, 4.5 a carry or more 8 times, and you didn't beef up your interior run defense, and you retain your linebackers, both of whom I like. I like Quincy, I like Jamie and Sherwood, but they're both lighter linebackers. So you've got nobody in the middle to keep the centers and guards who are trying to get to that second level. You've got nobody to keep those guys off your backers, off of your undersized backers, and you're supposed to be able to stop the run. I just don't see it. I've had people tell me Derek Nottie career, he was starter for X amount of years. He was brought in to stop the run. Maybe he will, but I watched a lot of Chiefs film to get a look at him stopping the run. He didn't do a lot of that. Now, listen, sometimes it does happen where you'll get a coach who brings a guy in who sees something in a guy and says, I can get this guy to do this thing he has not done in the past. Okay. Maybe he does. Maybe the Jets get something out of some of these guys that they haven't done in the past. Great. I'm all for it. But we don't know that. So when we're talking about what we expect to see, we have to kind of go off of what we know. And what I know right now is the Jets don't have guys in the middle of that defense who have proven they can stop the run at the pro level. So we'll see what happens. Again, that's my biggest concern going into the season in terms of personnel, in terms of guys who will be suiting up on Sundays and trying to stop opposing offenses. I think teams are just going to be able to bleed the clock and beat the Jets up in the trenches and shorten games. And the Jets aren't going to have the playmakers on offense to put up enough points to stop teams from scoring and then just chewing up clock. So that's why I'm not optimistic for this season. It's not because I'm not a real fan. And I looked at the comments from yesterday's video, and then it was weird. I saw it showed up as a YouTube comment. And then when I clicked on the comments to reply to it, it was gone. So I don't know how that works. There were two comments that were made after I did the video last night. And one of them said, did I want the Jets to fail because I liked Joe Douglas and he's gone now? That makes no sense. Because I did. I thought Joe Douglas put together a good team last year. And I know a lot of people who said last year that he put together a good team. And then when the coaching sucked and the kicker fell apart, it became, oh, Joe Douglas, this team sucks. Why do you put this team together? It's like you literally said this was going to be a 9, 10, 11, 12 win team because the kicker went in the tank and the coaching is terrible. Now all of a sudden the players suck. Anyway, moved on from that. I did think Joe Douglas put together a good team, and I said that many times last year. So why would I want this team, which is made up mostly of those players, to continue failing? Because then I would be wrong. It said something like, you like Joe Douglas, so you just want to be right and have this team fail. No, if they fail, then it's further proof that the team wasn't good. Because even though Muji's in charge now, this is mostly the team Joe Douglas built. The core pieces are Joe Douglas's pieces. So I want them to succeed, A, because I'm a Jets fan and enough of the goddamn losing already. And B, I mean, nobody wants to be wrong about stuff. If I am, I'll say it. But I think Olu Fashanu's good. I think Joe Tippmann's good. I think AVT is good. I think Breece Hall is good. I think Michael Carter is a great slot. I think Sauce is a great corner. Lot of pieces that I think are very good players who were brought in by the previous regime. So if this team were to be good this year, it would kind of support my theory of the coaching was the problem. So I think whoever said that didn't think it through and just thought, you want the Jets to lose because Douglas is gone and then you'll be right. No, I'd be wrong if they suck. But I think, again, I think the issue here, and I said this a few weeks ago, this trend that the Jets, that what they've done now is the same thing Joe Douglas was doing, not solidifying the DT. Now, listen, with Joe Douglas, at least he was sort of bringing in pieces, guys who were more productive than the guys they've brought in now. So that's, that's a, like, Naughty, I don't think would make this roster over the previous couple of years. This year, he's probably starting. Like, that's a big difference. Let's see. A couple things in the chat. You proved why we didn't go DT in this draft as a head scratch. Yeah, again, Rich, how we doing, buddy? Rich Gonzalez. And yeah, it's still, to me, it will be the two biggest head scratchers of the offseason. One, not solidifying DT through the draft. And number two is going to be coming up in a second when we talk about the top reason I don't expect the Jets to succeed this season, or why I believe they will be worse than they were last year. If the Jets finish last, would you draft Arch Manning? I mean, two things. A, I don't think Arch is coming out. B, if he's coming out, I think he pulls an Eli and wouldn't want to come here. You guys see that story today, by the way? Not Jets related, but apparently Caleb Williams was so terrified at the thought of being a Bear that he considered going to the UFL, and his family contacted some lawyers to see if there was a way to circumvent the draft process and not get drafted by the Bears. I would expect Arch to make some of those same phone calls if he's sitting there on the clock or on the board with the Jets on the clock. But again, I think he finishes school. I don't think he's coming out after this year. Meadowland Swamp Thing says the team went downhill when the D line was dismantled. Yeah, that was a huge part of it. That was a really big part of it. And James says if Fields can control time, put defense. Yeah, if the Jets can run the ball as much, I mean, I think that's going to be the game plan this year to run the hell out of it. It will put less strain on the defense, which will help, of course. So, and Meadowland says most teams that pick high suck. That's true. That is absolutely true. If you're picking high, it's because you're bad. But there's being bad, and then there's having a decades-long history of ruining quarterbacks and being bad. And that's the category the Jets fall into. Um, there are a lot of other teams who might have that top pick when Arch is on the board, and they might have someone on that staff to say, "Hey, here's the guy we've got who's going to be working with you." And really, Arch, probably the guy least in need of development in the history of the league coming out of college. I mean, his grandfather was Archie Manning, and his two uncles are Hall of Fame Super Bowl quarterbacks who have probably been working with him from the time he could walk. So I'm going to guess Arch is. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say he won't need a coach. I'm just saying, is there ever going to be a player who will have been developed at a higher level? He's gonna. I'm anxious to watch him this year. I think he's going to be fun. So that moves us on to my number one concern with the Jets heading into this season. It's the coaching staff. I've talked about this. I've talked about it many times. But rather than just sort of go off the top of my head and maybe leave a fact out or maybe get something a little bit wrong, I went to make sure, like get your ducks in a row. Let's present this with everything, not so off the cuff and just kind of going off memory because I wanted to make sure we got this right. And what I'm going to say to Jets fans now is I want you to remove the emotion of being a Jets fan. Try to put aside your fandom, your bias, your eternal blind optimism, whatever it may be. Pretend for a moment. Pretend for a moment that you were looking at another NFL team. Let's say this were the Dolphins. Let's pretend the Jets were the Dolphins. Okay? And you're sitting around with your buddy who's a Dolphins fan. And it's May and you're talking about how the offseason has gone and what the future holds. And you're really, let's not even say the Dolphins because they're division rival, right? You probably keep up on them. Let's say let's pick a random team. Let's say it's the Saints. We mentioned them earlier. Pretend it's the Saints. These things don't pertain to the Saints. Some of them might. But pretend it's a random team you don't really care about. And you say to your buddy, "Oh, how you guys looking this year? What's your situation?" And your friend says to you, "All right, well, here's what we got going on. Our GM's a rookie, but that really doesn't matter at this point, right? The offseason, the major transactions are done. There's the GM's job is 90% done from now till the start of the season, barring any huge trade opportunities, but that's not a big deal. But I say, well, we got a rookie head coach, promising, great mentors, did a great job as a DC, believe in him. Okay, so that's good. You got a rookie head coach. You're like, yeah, we have a rookie offensive coordinator. He's never called plays at the pro level. Last time he called plays was a low-level college a few years back, and he wasn't retained by the team he was most recently working for. They were happy to let him go and go sign somebody else. It's like, all right, well, that's a huge question mark. The special teams guy, heard some really good things about him from former players, current players. But he's a rookie too. He's not done this before, and he now will be working with two rookie punters. I know this is a coaching staff thing, but that's that's a factor. So all right, so you got a rookie OC, you got a rookie head coach, you got a rookie special teams coach who's working with two rookie punters. That's a little dicey. Little, you worried about that at all? You'd be like, yeah, that. Those are some big question marks. It's like, yeah, okay. How else is the coaching staff looking? Well, the tight ends coach we brought in, no track record as a tight end coach. He was an offensive line coach. Now he's a tight end coach. Yeah, Jeff Blasco. He's going to be coaching the tight ends, but he used to coach offensive line. But this is new to him. Okay, so another rookie. Well, essentially, he's been a coach, but not at this position. Okay, that's a little bit that's another sort of thing that has to work out. Yeah, similar to the O-line coach. What do you mean? Well, he used to be a tight ends coach. So your tight ends coach was an O-line coach, and your O-line coach was a tight ends coach? Yeah, Steve Hyden. He was a tight ends coach in Detroit. Now he's moving over to the O-line with the Jets. Okay. All right. So you got a rookie coach, rookie OC, rookie special teams, O-line coach used to coach the tight ends coach used to coach the O-line. That's a lot of things that have to go right. Um, what about this quarterback? What's your quarterback situation? Well, we got this guy. He was drafted a few years ago. He's been a bust. He's already on his third team in 5, 6 years. Got benched last year. Played okay. He's 4-2, but still got benched by a future Hall of Fame coach who went a different direction. But he's got a lot of talent. He's got like a lot of talent, untapped potential, as they say. And we're not giving up on him. Like the move. I like that we signed him. Okay, well, who'd you bring in to develop him? You must have brought in like someone who's got a track record of doing this before, right? No. Actually, we brought in a running backs coach who's this will be his fourth team in 5 years. Working with quarterbacks. He was a running backs coach from 2014 to 2020, and then he made the move from running backs coach to quarterbacks coach. He's not developed a quarterback of note. Most of the guys he worked with were flops and out of the league. And look, maybe they just didn't have the talent. That's possible. But we don't know that he can develop a quarterback because he's never developed a quarterback. And this is his fourth team in 5 years. So the last three teams let him go in short order. And he's the guy who's going to try to develop this very talented franchise quarterback. What would you say to that? Would you be like, "Oh wow, yeah, you're ready to rock. Yeah, you're gonna hit the ground running." No, I mean, if it was the Dolphins, if it was the Pats, if it was a division rival, you'd laugh. You'd be like, "That's awesome." You'd be like, "So you guys need like 7 major things to go your way in order to be competitive," which doesn't happen. I mean, forget about the Jets. Just in general, what team has all these rookies, in key positions, first time coaches, and just everyone clicks and everyone gets it right away and they just hit the ground running? It's just not a thing. And if this were not the Jets, if you're one of those fans, it's like I put out a poll today, asking people what they think the Jets win total will be. And I think the majority said 7 to 9 wins. A decent chunk of people said, what, 5 to 8 wins or 4 to 8 wins, whatever it was. Not many people said 10 plus wins. So credit to Jets fans for not being too delusional at this point. I still think 7 to 9 is generous, but it's not crazy. Again, you did win 5 last year. Tomorrow, as I said, we will talk about how you get to the playoffs this season, what has to go right. But a lot has to go right. Like I said, just go uninterrupted going over that list. Here's who the Jets are working with. Rookie head coach, rookie OC, rookie special teams, tight ends coach moving over from being an O-line coach moving over from being a tight ends coach, quarterbacks coach who transitioned from running backs coach 5 years ago, and is already on his fourth team in 5 years and has never developed a quarterback. If that were not the Jets, if that were a team that you either rooted against or had no interest in, and somebody explained to you that was their situation, you'd be like, "Oh man, they're screwed. They're not going to be competitive for a while." If you're being honest with yourself. I know that when it comes to our favorite team, we're not always honest with ourselves. I've been guilty of that in the past. But I'm just trying to be honest, and I'm going to be honest tomorrow when I say here's 5 reasons they can make the playoffs. But questions at corner, lack of targets, lack of pass rush, can't stop the run, and a million questions at I mean, you could literally do 5 questions on the coaching staff alone. You could do an episode on that. Forget about having coaching staff being the number one reason and going through that list. That list could be a 1-hour conversation with my fellow Jets fans. But that's why the New York Jets will be worse next year than they were this year. Tomorrow, we'll talk about why the Jets will be better next year than they were last year. That'll wrap this one up. Harlan hops on, says, I'm glad I caught you live just as we're closing it down. Sorry about that, Harlan. Yes, the Jets have been picking it in the top 10 for a while now. Lots of misses. Just hit on a damn quarterback, you know? Or how about hit on a quarterback who plays well for the Jets? Geno wasn't a top guy, of course. Wasn't a first-round guy, but Geno, I don't know how to feel about Geno. People say he was, the Jets, you should have held out. He took 10 years. Literally took him 10 years to start playing well. Darnold took him a while, but it didn't take him a decade. And now you got Zach, who is working with Mike McDaniel in Miami. And as I said yesterday, you're backing up Tua. If you're backing up Tua in Miami, I think you're expecting to start some football games. So this will be the first time, I believe. Listen, unless Zach flames out and Quinn Ewers beats him out for that job and Zach gets cut and his career is over. But if that doesn't happen and Zach remains QB2 for that team, I think he starts a few games, and that'll be the first time we'll have seen him start games with some experience, with some games under his belt, and an a head coach who knows something about offense. So that'll be, the last thing I want to see is a Dolphins quarterback play well, let alone a former Jet top pick flame out, go to the Dolphins and play well. That's the ultimate nightmare scenario. But we're not going to get into that right now. We are going to wrap this one up. As I said, tomorrow night we will go into how the Jets will go to the playoffs. Give me a follow at JNRadio_Glenn. Have a good one, Jets fans.